When I was 12 or 13, I think, obviously during the period before revolution, they brought us to on Pipera's platform in a company that was doing circuits for television. And there was a guy that 8 hours a day, he'll take a piece from here, put it on his table, pull a lever and put it in a basket here. And for me, it was really mind-blowing. I mean, I was like, I couldn't do that for 8 hours a day. So I said, okay, I have to find something which is, I mean, not like this. And then I was lucky at the time because the math teacher had a so-called informatic whatever, something. We didn't have computers, by the way, at the time, but we learned how to program on the so-called HC85. And we had just a piece of paper with the keyboard of the HC85. So we would program on the paper. The first moment I opened the computer, actually, I switched on a computer, was 1 year later when I participated in the Olympics. So until then, I didn't have a computer. I didn't see a computer. So it was funny. And then I decided, yeah, I want to go in tech. And then I went to the so-called high school of mathematics, physics, whatever, number 1, the actual Viano. And yeah, computer science and so on. I knew quite a lot. I mean, I really learned how to code. And actually in the high school they had, because the high school was a very good one, they were saying that many enterprise directors are coming from that high school. So they had an hour for, well, it's hard to translate. In Romanian it was Economia, Organizarea și Gestiunea Întreprinderilor Industriale. Teaching you somehow how to manage a company and so on. I mean, it was full of communism, things, but it was interesting. I mean, I wouldn't imagine that I would lead a company at a certain moment at the time. For me, coding was very important, but yeah, I learned something about it. Well, I started my own company in 2000, so, but it was not a tech startup, so it's still, I mean, I like my company, it's still alive and, kicking. But it's a services company, so we do software development. And I've tried a few times to develop a product as well, so to switch from services to product. And obviously I was not able to, so it didn't work. So I had a friend that was working in venture capital, and he said, yeah, maybe you start looking at startups and maybe you start investing in startups. And I was like, I was not so sure about that, But then he convinced me to join one of the first How to Web conferences. And this was also funny because he called Bogdan Iordache, who was doing the conference at the time, and he said, listen, I have a friend that might be interested in investing in startups, and he would attend the conference. So maybe you can, give him a ticket for free or something. And Bogdan said, no, I mean, if he is interested, he should pay for the ticket, And the guy said, sorry, I wanted to, to get a ticket from you, but it was not possible because the guy said like this, And I was, well, he's right, actually. I mean, it makes sense. He's organizing the conference. He needs to make some money, so it's okay. I will pay for the ticket, So I paid for the ticket. I went to the conference, and it was really surprising. I mean, in a good sense. I liked it a lot. The whole enthusiasm and dynamism and, openness. I really liked it. So I said, that might be something. So I started to look into it. Like 1 or 2 years after, there was TechAngels started. It was 2013. I joined that as well from the beginning. So yeah, this is how it started. I was working for a large corporation. I don't know if the name is important anyway. And I was quite unhappy because I couldn't, they were not doing coding, you know. I learned a lot of things and I was doing project management and stuff like that and so on. So it was really a good experience, but I was not coding and, you know, I wanted to code. And then, yes, I got a job offer in Silicon Valley, which was sort of mecca for us at the time. Maybe still is, I don't know, even though now it's not so. Anyway, I went up to the moment I had a law firm dealing with my visa for the United States, my working visa. So, and when I had the papers and I had to sign them, I was like, I don't know, maybe do I really want to do it, or maybe I can try first here and see if it works or not, and then switch later if it doesn't. So I said, okay, let me try first. And I decided not to sign. And then I started to solve my coding problem by doing some freelance work. I was also a bit lucky on that. So it happened that I got an offer, and that again was funny because they were willing to develop a product that was in a programming language that I didn't know, and they needed it in a month. So I said, listen, I don't know the programming language. And they said, yeah, you're a smart guy, you can learn it, So, and actually it worked. And from there, we were together, a few friends, started to do that together. It was a bit tough, but I was 20-something, so I was coming back from the corporation, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, because I was quite seriously working there as well. Going somewhere in Pantelimon, and coding up to 2 o'clock in the night or something, and then back at the corporation at 9. So it was really something for a couple of years or so. But it was very nice, and I also made some money, and it was cool. And then it started to work better than expected. They asked us to bring some new programmers, but the first circle of friends was already there, so we had to hire some people. So we decided to make a company, which was again quite an experience because obviously we didn't know anything about companies, so no idea, no clue about accountancy, about human resources or whatever, things like that. And there were a few funny stories on that. But however, we managed. And then quite soon after, I left the corporation and I focused on the company. Yeah, there were some Swiss guys, some whatever. Initially a German lady, and then some Swiss guys. Nothing. They didn't care about that. So there were 2 Swiss guys that were developing. Actually, they developed the second payment solution in Switzerland at the time. They were quite successful. However, they had a problem. Their initial software was developed by a Russian guy who had a drinking problem later on. So they were left without a programmer. So they needed a solution for that. And eventually, as usually, we had to rewrite the whole code and to, It was a bit complicated. Our initial freelance product was a casino game online with many games, like, I don't know, roulette and blackjack and whatever. But then we finished it, we developed it, and there was nothing left. And one of my friends decided to become an employee of that company. So he left his previous job. And then the company had basically no projects. So it was a German lady running the company. So the German lady found this project with the Swiss guy. So she said, I have an idle programmer and so on. And somehow they had a fight with the German lady, whatever, something like that. And in the end, they decided to work directly with my friend. My friend it was too much for him. So he brought us again. And that's how we got our first customer. And then, of course, the Swiss guys came here many times, and we went to Switzerland many times, and so on. So yeah, it's from here. I mean, for Romanians, of course, they were the two antivirus guys. So Radu Georgescu from RAV at the time, Romanian Antivirus, I think it was the name. And Talpeș from Bitdefender. So in Romania, I think Radu actually had his exit about 2001 or two, so I was already having the company. And there were a few others, but not really, I mean, some accountancy applications and something like that, but not something really, great as a product. And outside Romania, it was, I don't know, it was still quite early. I mean, there were the big companies, the old big companies such as IBM, Microsoft, and so on. They were, quite powerful. There was the time where, Apple started to show up, then Google, but Google, when they started, I mean, there were a few search engines and Google was just one of them, and then, they started to grow. So yeah, I think this was the environment at the time. But the first time I went to How to Web, I was already considering investing. I had no idea about the best practices and how should I do it and what is legit to ask and things like that. I had no idea about that. And actually, quite soon after, I found the founder, George Lemnaru, from Green Horse Games, and we started to talk. But I told him, listen, I have no experience whatsoever, so I mean, I would invest, but I need somebody else to come along because I don't know what to do and I don't know what to ask and I don't know how to get involved and how much and all these kind of things. And he agreed. He was like, yeah, I understand, it's okay, and so on. And then we started together to talk, and we had some sort of let's call it a board, but it was not we went together to a beer or something. But we were meeting on a regular basis, very informally. And he tried to raise money from somebody else, but he couldn't. And eventually in 2013, he said, listen, if you don't invest, we just go belly up. So it's up to you, but so I said, yeah, what the fuck? I'm going there. So I invested. And it was interesting because I think 1 month after, or maybe less, they had a game. So within a month, they decided to drop the game, to give up on the game, and to develop a new game. And I was like, it was a good experience because I said quite seriously that I don't agree with that. So I think it's too risky and I don't agree. But I told George at the time, I said, okay, I don't agree, but you're the CEO, so you will decide. However, when you decide, you should keep in mind that I don't agree with it. And then he came back and he said, I was thinking about that and I keep in mind that you don't agree, but I decided still to change the game. Okay, fine, let's see. And he did that, and it was a good idea. So yeah, we did, I think 1 year later, he got Catalyst into it, and when he actually didn't really need it anymore. So, but that's how it happens. Yeah. I had these talks with my VC friend. He told me about what they were doing, and I mean, the whole concept of having a minority stake in a company was a bit strange for Romania at the time. So it was definitely not the way a brick and mortar company would work, or a normal investment would work. But I thought it was interesting, and then it was how to web and so on. So I started to understand, and then I had to learning by doing. So I learned as I was doing it. Yeah, and I mean, they were experienced. I mean, there was quite a well-known founder now that had his first startup at the time, and I liked it, and we had discussions, and then he started to have success, and it went down because of success, and because from the technical point of view, the product was not ready for success. So this way I learned that I need to look in the technical part quite seriously, even though initially it was not common sense to. I mean, the thing was working, then why not investing? But it's like, if it's working too good, it may it may crack. So yeah, I learned on the way. It was close to zero, the investment environment. I mean, there were a few people. I mean, once Radu, by example, had his exit, he started to invest in some startups and so on. So it was known about that. And there were very few others. I think Sergio was active when I started Sergio Neguț. There was Adrian Gheară from Oradea. He was a bit active too. I mean, so there were a few guys that had some exits, and they were looking into it, but really a few. And then the exits were, very rare, and not too many. So yeah, I mean, it was very much in the beginning, and the whole concept of investing in startups was in its early stages anyway. So I think also in the world, I mean, besides maybe Silicon Valley, that was still not at the level they are now. It was not something as it is today. No. When they started, the first meeting they had, I was also there. But it was, I think there were like 10, 15, something like that. And truth being told, when I took it over in 2019, I think, there were 21 members, I believe, and about 4 or 5 were not paying their fees. So there were not really 21. So it was not an active group at the time. But there were a few people, and they were enthusiasts, and they were trying to do things and so on. And it was cool. I mean, it's like, obviously it's better right now. So it's, there are more brains together, and it's easier to do things and to syndicate deals and so on. At the time, everybody was in the beginning. So there was nobody with serious experience about investing in startups. But it was something we liked, so it was nice. No, and I think there is no competition now among angels. And I mean, the Romanian ecosystem is so much underfinanced that there is no competition. I mean, not with the funds, not with the angels. It's like, usually if there is interest and there are more entities willing to invest in a startup, the startup will take the money. So it's not like they will say, no, I had enough. Maybe in a few cases, but normally, no. The amounts were similar to today, and I think, tickets, you mean, they're similar, and I think they're similar all over the world. It's like there are always some super angels that are willing to invest more money, and also in the world is the same. Most of the angels have, a range which is in the levels of tens of thousands. And normally in the beginning, where they have less experience and they want to learn and they don't want to, to be too exposed to a deal that they maybe don't fully understand, they will go with smaller tickets. But it's pretty similar everywhere. Again, because the Romanian system is very underfinanced, the guys that were doing startups were usually very determined and really willing to do something. It's not, and still in Romania, we see very few startups that, they're just trying to use an opportunity like maybe I can get some money and try and see, and if not, forget it, and that's it. Normally, the people that make startups are, serious, and they're trying to do something, and they can fail because they don't know enough, or because they don't get money or whatever, but they are willing to do it, which is quite a good advantage for the investors here. In the beginning, it was less of an opportunity. It was more complicated to raise the money. At the time when we started, there was no fund whatsoever in Romania. There were some regional funds, but not really a solution for Romania. And usually there were funds that were doing also maybe private equity or something. So for startups, it was a problem to raise the money. And the ones that did raise money usually did it outside Romania, because in Romania it was very difficult. Now there are, I believe it's much better than it used to be, but it's still way behind what happens in other countries. From let's say the good part is, because we didn't have the public sector involved in startups and so on, the startup ecosystem is very healthy. So we don't have funds that are, friends with the president or with whatever political persons that other countries have. We didn't have scandals, corruption scandals or whatever in startups and so on, because the whole thing is very healthy, as the state was not involved. But it's also less of an opportunity that has to be seized by the opportunists. Okay, so maybe there are startups that can, be started or developed because there are money available. For us, when it happens, usually it's because the founders believe in the product or in the market or whatever, not because they had money. Fully. If I wouldn't trust that, I wouldn't invest. And yes, this is something that founders have to build with their investors, so trust. And in my opinion, no investor would invest unless they build trust. So if they believe the guy would start, pocketing the money or something like that, they would probably not even try to invest. And once you do it, it's usually complete trust. And I never had problems, by the way. I never felt like, maybe they were, but I never saw them, and I never felt like, there is somebody trying to do some shady things. Not yet, but I am going to have, so a couple of them are not going well. But it's not because the founders were not doing their things. It's because of other reasons, like the product and, they didn't have the success they expected and so on. Well, I think, failures are normal. Nobody should be crushed by failures. However, I think everybody should try to learn a lesson out of each failure. Even though I believe the success gives better lessons than failures. However, when it happens, you should try to understand why it happened and what can you do to prevent that, and in a reasonable way, because if you're trying to protect yourself too much for failures, I think you're going in a wrong direction. So you should, and for us, for angel investors that, they're obviously taking a lot of risk, therefore failures are obviously possible. You cannot protect yourself for failures. It's there. I think it's more important though to create opportunities for success than to protect for failures. Yeah, obviously. I mean, you cannot take all the opportunities, and obviously, it's a decision process that sometimes can be wrong. If you want, I consider this more as a failure than a write-off, than a startup that goes dead, because actually, it's acceptable that some of the startups will not work. But deciding not to invest in something that works, I mean, when you have the opportunity, it's somewhere where you can learn more. I mean, okay, what was wrong? Will I make the same mistake? And so on. And there are cases where you decide, yes, I will make the same mistakes, and I accept that, and that's it. I know I can make these mistakes. I can give you an example on that. So. There was a startup in Romania that had an exit, quite a good one, and I met the founder quite many times. About 3 times I was on the point to invest in that startup, but I always had the problem because they were not expanding. They were still in Romania, and I was like, yeah, I will invest, but go somewhere abroad. And the guy was like, yeah, I went to Cluj. No, abroad. It's beyond the borders, And then again, like this, And eventually they had a very good exit without going abroad. And I decided that, of course, I was wrong, that I could make some money and I could have invested there and so on. But it's a mistake I will willingly continue to make, because it's, in my opinion, more risky to invest in a startup that cannot go beyond Romania than to waste a few opportunities that may work in Romania too. Well, I like them. So, yeah, I think what is bad, let's start with that, because there are not so many. It's that we still lack some experience, and there is not enough support for later stages. So in Romania, as an angel, I mean anywhere, as an angel, you expect that there will be some follow-up rounds. And it's good to have an ecosystem where you can access follow-up rounds in an easy way if you have a valuable startup. But in Romania, we don't have so many funds. We have just a few. And some of the existing funds are no longer investing in new startups because their period of first investment ended. So this is a problem. And then, of course, as a business angel, you have to think about, okay, I mean, by the way, the logic of investment in a startup is that you believe in the startup success. So the startup will grow and will, thrive and will have great success. But then, thinking in the success key, you need to find ways to continue to support the startup. Or for a business angel, there are some limits. I mean, you cannot start, pouring millions in the startup. Usually you don't have the money anyway. So you need to find funds to help them to grow further. And if you don't have the funds, you have to start looking abroad and so on. So it's quite a tedious process to to do. So this could be a problem. Then, of course, for us, it's a newer thing than it's for, let's say, Western Europe or US, Canada business angels. So they're more newbies in the business angel thing. And this would be the bad things. So not too many. And I believe they can be solved. The good thing, and I mean, what I like most about the startup ecosystem is that compared to any other business verticals, it's a very open system, and people are willing to help, and at all levels. So even if we talk investors, but also if we think about, I don't know, founders in between themselves, accelerators, and so on, they're all like they're open. They're trying to help. I mean, of course, maybe sometimes it's a lack of time, or you don't want to get involved into something or whatever. But people are generally open and nice. The ecosystem and the founders and so on bring a lot of enthusiasm and dynamism. That's also for a guy that is not so young like I am. It's nice. There is also, people acknowledge that the ecosystem is not very mature and so on. However, it's like, for business angels, by example, we do have every month we meet and we try to have some knowledge sharing sessions, right? So that the new guys will understand and so on. And that's, volunteer work if you want, but it's good and it's nice. And everybody, not only the new guys, but also for me, it's quite cool to understand what were the other guys' experiences. Things maybe in situations maybe where I wasn't involved, So it's quite a nice ecosystem in my opinion. And I think the Romanian investors in startups, so business angels, are generally some nice people. My take on that is it's an investment, so it should be rational. It should be something based on something. Because we talk about startups, it's fair that you don't have, a lot of clear results, and not all the assumptions are validated, and there are some steps to be taken to prove some things and so on. So it's acceptable and it's okay. But sometimes you don't invest only with your brain, and but the brain should lead the process. So it's important that the brain leads the process, however. And about projections, you always take them with a grain of salt as a business angel. So it's the job of the founders to be optimistic, and ours too. We are optimistic too, but you take with a grain of salt whatever happens there. And it's also that we do see quite a lot of startups, and some of them are too optimistic, or so then you follow what happens not only in Romania but also in the world, and you see also the failures of others. So normally an investor, a business angel, has more experience about startups in general than the founders have, because the founders didn't see as many startups as we do. So you should just use your experience and learn from it. This being said, sometimes you don't invest only with the brain. So yeah. There is a gap, obviously. So there are ecosystems that are much better in all respects than the Romanian one, but we are not bad. So compared to Eastern Europe, I think, as I said before, that we are probably one of the healthiest ecosystems. So whatever is in Romania is very private, based on solid economical reasons, not some political things. It's which is good because it's a solid foundation, let's say. Even though we are less underfinanced, we are less financed than even, I don't know, Bulgarians, Hungarians, whatever. Not talking about Polish. I mean, it's but we do have a healthy ecosystem, and that's important. In terms of, I mean, TechAngels, by example, is part of. There are two European organizations of angels, BAE and DBAN, and we are part of both. So we see what happens with some other angel groups and basically all over Europe and even Canada, because they have one of the angel federations is coming from Canada. And I mean, we are not the best in terms of angel investors, but we are quite okay. So I'd say we are in the upper side of the for angel groups. It's reasonable. Of course, we started later. There are ecosystems like the British one, by example, that is very well incentivized by the state, and it's a no-brainer for a lot of people to start investing in startups because they would deduct taxes and they anyway have to pay. So it's like you give this money to a startup or you give it to the state. So it's a easy decision. So then the whole thing is very developed, but it's good that you have a lot of angels and a lot of money. In my opinion, however, if you're a business angel, you should invest in startups only if you can help them. If not, it's a very high-risk business. So I think it's up to the lottery level to invest in startups that you cannot help. Now, if the money you put in startups are anyway going away because you have to pay taxes, then fine. I mean, you put it in a lottery. It's okay, But for us, when angels start investing, they are usually getting involved. They are usually trying to help the startups. They are usually, giving a hand, giving an advice, making an intro. They're doing things which are really helping. Whereas if it's some money that would go away anyway, they will not get involved. Or maybe a few of them would, but most of them will not. So from this point of view, it's okay what we have here. And then it's similar with the funds. So luckily the funds we have until now, they're very good. They're people that with entrepreneurial backgrounds, with experience, they are getting involved much more than the usual funds are. They're not some financing guys that are just putting some money here and spraying and praying. They're really trying to get involved. They're really trying to do things. And that goes for all the funds that we have in Romania. So it's really chapeau bas. They are doing a good job. There are a few, but they are doing a good job. So that's the way I see it. Now, last but not least, the largest European unicorn, and I'm talking the whole Europe, is UiPath, which is Romanian born. So, of course, we only have one, and some others have many, but still ours, is the tallest. Yeah. Yeah, I believe we will. It depends very much. The situation right now is not great, but supposing the good days are coming back, we have all the chances. It is difficult to make projections, especially for me, because I'm not into future telling stuff. And there are a few things that will probably change the ecosystem. So we're talking now about, 400 millions coming from the resilience and recovery plan, some other tens of millions that are coming from other sources and so on. There are some money coming in Romania. I really do hope they will be wise enough to give those money to proper people. and we will not see too many startup nation solutions. But there will be some money, and this may change the things from the fund's perspective, at least. From the business angels, I think there are good grounds that there will be more, and they will invest more, and so on. And we can see with TechAngels people that maybe had no investments until they joined, but then they start to have investments, they start to get involved, they start to understand, which is a good thing. We have this, let's say, UiPath success story that is bringing here not only funds, and we do see funds with regional appetites that are coming here, but it's also, if you wish, encouraging individuals to start looking at this sort of investment as well. Luckily or unluckily, it didn't become a gold rush because we had the pandemic and we had the war and so on. So they're not like, it's not like people are jumping in and doing stupid things, but that's also good, healthy. So I think there are good grounds the ecosystem will evolve. Moreover, from the startups point of view, from the founders point of view, it's the success brings success. So the fact that there were some good exits are encouraging founders to start their own startup, which is good. And I believe we are trying to help those guys, and the accelerators are also trying to encourage them and so on. So talking about UiPath, it's also the PayPal mafia type of thing that happens. So we see now former UiPath employees are coming back into the ecosystem and investing and getting involved and so on. So the things are moving in the right direction, in my opinion. I don't know what will happen. I don't know how much the whole economical situation and the war and so on will impact the startup businesses. Obviously, there is an impact. Obviously, there were less investments in the last period of time, but I think this is going to go better. From the investor's point of view, it's less of a, they're more into this, or they should be more like rationally deciding whether to invest or not. Founders, however, are quite more impacted by the hype of AI or things like that. So they are, maybe, they see what happens and then they say, I can have an AI doing that as well, and maybe it's a good idea. They start validating and they start building a startup on that. So there normally all these hypes happening in the tech world will impact the startups. So we did see more health-related startups when the pandemic started, by example, because it was a need, and that's normal. Entrepreneurs are addressing needs always. So yeah. It's also now we can see, ChatGPT is, very, they have very powerful impact in the whole world. So people are more interested in AI than they used to be. There will be things like that. They will continue to be like that, probably in the future. There are situations where and usually somehow, I don't know why, but somehow they happen to be in the same period of time. So we had a period where we saw applications for, finding plumbers and whatever. Then we saw applications for booking restaurants or something like that, and so on. It happens. What they should do, in my opinion, but we tell them usually that they should do that. First of all, they should differentiate themselves. So they should have, even if you think you can better address a certain market with the same tool, it's still at a certain moment you will have to fight against similar tools elsewhere. So then make it different, make it better. Then from a market like Romania, which is not a great market, a large market and so on, you need to understand that unless you're willing to innovate and to keep innovating, you'll not be able to protect whatever you're doing. So even if you have a good idea, even if you, I don't know, think of something that nobody else did, it will be copied by others. And if you don't continue to innovate and to do things, you will become irrelevant. So you need to take this innovation process seriously, and to understand that unless you develop the story and you go further and so on, it will not happen. Then maybe a common problem in Eastern Europe, but it's also a feature. If it's not only a bug, it's also a feature, is that founders tend to, they have some good technical skills. So then they tend to develop a product and afterwards to think about, now what we can do with it. So how can we use it? Which is like, I don't know, it's not the way it should be. So you should actually do it the other way around. So find the need and then address the need, not create something and then trying to create the need for whatever you did, right? But in this respect, a good solution would be for the founders to try to attend some of the accelerators, because these kind of things are quite well explained and they will start to understand how it goes. And it's, by the way, this is regardless the age of the founders, because there is a tendency for the young ones will accept that they still have to learn. But sometimes for the elder ones, they believe they've seen enough. They don't need to go to an accelerator and waste time learning things. But I think it's good. It's not because they don't understand the business in general or they don't understand their vertical or something, but they don't understand the specifics and the best practices of the startups and the way it goes. So I think it's good also for more experienced people to try to learn the startup-ish. Yeah. We learn from each other every day, and I think it's a good thing. So we always, and as a business angel, you're exposed to see new things all the time, so which is very nice. So yes, you always learn, and maybe there are even things that you never thought of, and you start digging and see, I didn't know that exists. So that's very nice. If it really affected my way of, I don't know, my life or my business, yeah, probably, but not to a great extent. I like what I'm doing, and I'm lucky to like what I'm doing. I know it's not always the case. About coding, I still do some coding every once in a while, so I develop my own tools, or I don't do it for commercial purposes, so I'm just playing with it. But maybe sometimes I just make some. Anyway, so I do code every once in a while. I do have Eclipse installed on my computer, so I'm looking at GitHub everywhere, every once in a while. So I think I will continue. The level of involvement is now balanced in between my company and angel investing and so on. And this may fluctuate a little bit, but yeah, I will probably keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm not sure about that. Hard to say. I was lucky not to make serious mistakes. So, and I believe again, now I have kids of my own and so on, so I start to see all these things from some other perspective. Somehow I was lucky that I decided, back in time, at that time, to go this way, that I liked it. So I was really, involved. It's still a pleasure to code, and I was lucky. So what I would say to myself, to keep doing that. I don't know. It's not like I cannot think of something that would really, improve whatever happened. No, it's. But what I would say to the young ones now is that better than any other time, people do have the chance to be successful, regardless where they are coming from, regardless, what is their background, their experience, their culture, their, nationality or religion or whatever. They can really do things, and it's more than ever up to themselves to do things. And that's extraordinary in my opinion. I mean, whenever happened in Romania that, some guy from the countryside or whatever can make millions and become successful and well known and so on, just because he's good in what he's doing. Now it's possible. And, they don't need to have whatever support from the parents or whatever money from the family or whatever. They can do it just because they are good. I mean, I think it's amazing. They should use that.